They were the band that gave the world Don't Stop Believin'. But behind the anthems was a story of breakups, lawsuits, and betrayals that nearly destroyed them. This is the untold rise and fall of Journey, the birth of Journey. Journey's beginnings weren't glamorous. In 1973, the band formed out of the ashes of Santana and Frumious Bandersnatch, carrying the raw energy of San Francisco's music scene. At first, they weren't chasing radio hits or screaming crowds. Instead, their focus was on musicianship, long, experimental jams filled with technical wizardry. It was music for the musicians, not the masses. They were tight, skilled, and creative, but there was a problem. Almost nobody outside of diehard prog and fusion fans cared. Their early albums, Journey, 1975, Look Into the Future, 1976, and Next, 1977, showcased jaw-dropping talent, but sales were weak. Without commercial success, Columbia Records started losing faith. The executives wanted hits, not 10-minute instrumental showcases, and they made it clear, change or you're done. For the band, it was a turning point. Do they stick with the complex artistry they loved, or pivot towards something catchier, something that could actually get played on the radio? Choosing survival over stubbornness, they decided to reinvent themselves. They streamlined the sound, tightened the songwriting, and began hunting for a voice that could take them beyond the Bay Area club circuit. This wasn't just a business decision, it was a gamble with their entire identity on the line. Bands like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd had already carved out unique niches. Journey was still searching for theirs, and as the mid-70s rock scene shifted toward arena anthems, the timing couldn't have been more critical. It was in this moment of uncertainty, standing at the edge of collapse, that Journey set the stage for their biggest transformation. They didn't know it yet, but the voice that would carry them to immortality was about to walk through the door, the Steve Perry phenomenon. When Steve Perry joined Journey in 1977, it was like flipping a switch the band didn't even know they had. Before him, they were a talented but struggling act, drifting between genres. With him, they became a phenomenon. Perry wasn't just another frontman. His voice was electric, high, powerful, and packed with raw emotion. It gave Journey the radio-ready identity they had been searching for. Almost immediately, the shift was clear. Songs like Lights and Wheel in the Sky put the band on the map, introducing them to a wider audience. Perry had a way of making every lyric feel personal, like he was singing directly to you. Fans weren't just hearing music, they were feeling it. And that connection is what turned Journey from a band into an anthem machine. By the early 80s, they were unstoppable. The release of Escape in 1981 marked their peak. The album wasn't just a success, it was a cultural landmark. Tracks like Don't Stop Believin' and Open Arms dominated the airwaves, while Stone in Love and Who's Crying Now showed their range. Escape went multi-platinum, and suddenly Journey was no longer opening for other bands. They were headlining massive arenas. But Perry's influence went beyond the charts. His stage presence was magnetic. With his signature microphone poses, soulful delivery, and heartfelt performances, he made every concert feel like an intimate confession, even in front of 50,000 people. Fans who had never connected with prog rock solos now had something tangible to hold on to. A voice that spoke to heartbreak, resilience, and hope. This was the era when Journey became more than a band. They became a soundtrack to people's lives. From prom nights to road trips, from heartbreak to celebration, their songs defined a generation. And Perry, with his uncanny ability to turn vulnerability into power, became the symbol of that rise. Yet, as history often shows, the brightest flames burn the fastest. The very intensity that lifted Journey to superstardom also planted the seeds of future cracks. Perry was a perfectionist, driven to deliver not just good performances, but unforgettable ones. That pressure, both internal and external, would eventually take its toll. Cracks behind the hits. At the height of their fame, Journey looked untouchable. Sold-out stadiums, multi-platinum albums, constant radio play. It seemed like they had cracked the code to immortality. But behind the curtain, things were far from perfect. The very formula that made them unstoppable was also grinding them down. The first cracks appeared in the relentless touring schedule. Night after night, Perry pushed his voice to its absolute limits, delivering those high-flying notes that fans demanded. What most people didn't realize was that his style, soaring, sustained, and emotionally raw, was punishing on the vocal cords. By the mid-80s, the strain was catching up with him. He began experiencing vocal fatigue, forcing the band to cancel or shorten tours. Fans thought they were witnessing perfection. Perry knew he was walking a tightrope. But the pressure wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Perry had quickly become the face of Journey, overshadowing even longtime members like Neil Schon and Ross Valory. To fans, Journey was Steve Perry. That kind of spotlight created resentment. Behind closed doors, bandmates felt Perry was making too many decisions, pulling the group in directions they weren't always comfortable with. The Raised on Radio sessions in 1986 brought all of this to the surface. Perry, struggling with personal issues, including the death of his mother, took near total control of the album's production. In the process, he sidelined bassist Ross Valory and drummer Steve Smith, replacing them with studio musicians. The move sent shockwaves through the band, breaking the sense of unity they had built. What should have been another victory lap felt more like a fracture. And then there was Perry's health. A hip condition began to affect his ability to tour, making the prospect of long stretches on the road nearly impossible. For a band whose lifeblood was live performance, this was devastating. By 1987, after one of the most successful runs in rock history, Perry walked away. To the public, it looked sudden. One day Journey was everywhere, the next they were gone. But inside, the collapse had been years in the making, an implosion fueled by exhaustion, creative clashes, and the unbearable weight of success. The cracks had finally broken wide open, and the question now was simple. Could Journey survive without the man who had defined them? Trials, comebacks, and singer roulette. When Steve Perry stepped away in 1987, many believed Journey was finished. After all, Perry wasn't just the singer. He was the emotional core, the one fans had built their connection around. But nearly a decade later, in 1996, a spark of hope reignited. The band reunited with Perry for Trial by Fire, an album that proved Journey still had the magic. Songs like When You Love a Woman reminded everyone of what they'd been missing, earning the band a Grammy nomination and praise from both critics and fans. But that comeback was short-lived. Plans for a massive reunion tour collapsed when Perry revealed he needed hip surgery. Instead of undergoing the procedure right away, he hesitated, leaving the band in limbo. For Schon and Kane, the weight became unbearable. Journey was finally back in the spotlight, and now they were stuck again. Perry wanted time, but the rest of the band wanted action. In a painful move, they replaced him rather than risk fading into silence once more. Enter Steve Augeri in 1998. At first, fans welcomed him, impressed by his ability to channel Perry's signature sound. With Augeri, Journey released Arrival and Generations, albums that kept the band alive but failed to match their earlier glory. Worse, as tours dragged on, Augeri's voice began to falter. Allegations surfaced that the band was using pre-recorded backing tracks to cover his vocal struggles, a damaging rumor that forced him to step down in 2006. Next came Jeff Scott Soto, a seasoned rock vocalist who brought fresh energy but lasted less than a year. His sudden departure, with little explanation, left fans confused and the band once again adrift. Journey had become a band with no anchor, endlessly searching for someone who could live up to Perry's shadow. This constant turnover wasn't just exhausting for the band, it fractured the fan base. Some were willing to accept new voices, while others flatly refused, clinging to the belief that without Perry, Journey was nothing more than a name. By the mid-2000s, the band's legacy felt stuck between nostalgia and uncertainty. They had the songs, the history, and the talent, but without a stable frontman, their future looked shaky. And then, in a twist no one could have predicted, salvation came from the most unlikely of places: YouTube, power plays, and lawsuits. If Journey's early years were defined by music, their later years were defined by money, power, and control. What once started as a brotherhood of musicians had become a corporate battlefield. The turning point came in 2020. Guitarist Neil Schon and keyboardist Jonathan Kane, two of the band's longest-standing members, accused bassist Ross Valory and drummer Steve Smith of orchestrating what they called a corporate coup. The allegation? Valory and Smith tried to gain control over the Journey name by manipulating corporate filings tied to the band's business entity. For Schoen and Kane, this wasn't just betrayal. It was an attempt to steal the very identity of Journey. The lawsuit was ugly, with millions of dollars and the rights to the band's legacy on the line. Schoen and Kane publicly fired Valerie and Smith, ending decades-long partnerships. Fans who had grown up with the classic lineup were stunned. It wasn't the kind of rock and roll drama they wanted to hear about. This wasn't about the music anymore. It was about trademarks, royalties, and who held the keys to the brand. Eventually, the lawsuit was settled out of court in 2021. Valerie and Smith walked away quietly, and Schoen and Kane tightened their grip on Journey's future. But the scars lingered. The band had survived the Perry split, the revolving singers, and years of instability. Yet now, it was being torn apart from the inside, not on stage, but in boardrooms and courtrooms. And the battles didn't end there. In 2024, another storm hit, when Jonathan Cain accused Schoen of financial misconduct, alleging he misused a shared American Express account to rack up over $1 million in personal expenses. The feud grew so heated that the band's 50th anniversary UK and Ireland tour was abruptly cancelled, leaving thousands of fans disappointed and furious. These constant public disputes painted a darker picture of Journey. Instead of being remembered solely for anthems that inspired millions, headlines now focused on legal filings and bitter rivalries. The name Journey was starting to look less like a band and more like a brand being fought over in court. And yet, amid the chaos, one figure still carried the torch for fans worldwide. The man who had once been discovered singing Journey covers on YouTube. Pineda's promise and fan connection. In 2007, when Neil Schoen stumbled across a YouTube video of a Filipino singer belting out Journey covers with uncanny precision, few could have predicted what would come next. That singer was Arnel Pineda, and within months he went from performing in Manila clubs to standing on stage in front of tens of thousands of people as the new frontman of Journey. For many fans, it felt surreal. Here was someone plucked from halfway across the world, not from the usual rock and roll circuit, but from the internet. Pineda's voice was stunningly similar to Steve Perry's, yet he brought his own fire and humility to the role. When he hit the high notes of Faithfully or Separate Ways, it was as if the band had been reborn. But Pineda's story wasn't just about talent, it was about resilience. Growing up in poverty, he often sang to survive, sometimes homeless, sometimes unsure where his next meal would come from. His rise to fronting one of the biggest rock bands in history wasn't just a career move. It was a Cinderella story that inspired millions, especially fans across Asia who had never seen someone like them at the forefront of an iconic American rock act. Still, stepping into Perry's shadow came with enormous pressure. Critics constantly compared him to The Voice, and some diehard fans refused to accept anyone but Perry. Over the years, Pineda endured relentless scrutiny, every performance dissected, every vocal slip magnified. He once admitted that the pressure often felt unbearable, and yet he kept pushing, kept delivering night after night. That pressure boiled over in 2024. After a shaky rock in Rio, performance drew harsh online criticism. In an emotional response, Pineda said if fans truly wanted him gone, he'd step aside. It was raw, vulnerable, and showed just how much he cared about honoring the band's legacy. Unlike the lawsuits and feuds happening behind the scenes, Arnel's connection to fans felt pure. He wasn't fighting for money or control. He was fighting to keep the music alive. For many, that humility made him the heart of modern Journey. He wasn't Steve Perry, and he never pretended to be. Instead, he became the bridge that allowed fans, old and new, to keep believing. Journey beyond or beyond repair. After 50 years, Journey stands at a crossroads. The band that once seemed unstoppable has endured enough drama to fill a dozen biographies. Departures, lawsuits, health battles, and public feuds. And yet, somehow, the name Journey still sells out arenas. The question now isn't whether they'll be remembered, it's whether they can move forward without tearing themselves apart. In early 2024, Neil Schoen quietly filed a trademark for the name Journey Beyond. Instantly, speculation ran wild. Was this the start of a spin-off project? A rebrand to move on from the endless legal fights? Or just another chess move in the never-ending battle for control? Fans couldn't help but wonder if this signaled a new era, or the slow fading of the one they knew. Meanwhile, Jonathan Cain has leaned into a different identity, balancing his journey duties with a career as a Christian music artist and public speaker. His differences with Sean, both musical and personal, have widened the cracks in the foundation. With Perry long gone and other founding members pushed aside, Journey today looks more like a fractured company than the tight-knit band of the late 70s and 80s. And yet, the music refuses to die. Every time Don't Stop Believin' plays at a sporting event, in a movie, or on the radio, the world is reminded of what Journey once was, a band capable of uniting millions with a single chorus. Their legacy is untouchable, even if the band itself seems trapped in constant turmoil. The future is unclear. Will Journey Beyond be a fresh rebirth, or will it dilute what's left of the original magic? Can Arnel Pineda withstand the pressure and criticism long enough to keep the torch burning? Or will the lawsuits and egos finally overwhelm the music? What's undeniable is that Journey's story is still being written. They've fallen before, only to rise again in unexpected ways. And maybe that's the most fitting legacy of all, that even in chaos, even in uncertainty, the spirit of Journey mirrors the very anthem that made them immortal. No matter what, they just don't stop believing. In the end, Journey's rise and fall isn't just about fame or failure, it's proof that some songs never die. And if you want more timeless stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Backstage Melody for the next great music story.